Can you beat Crash Bandicoot 4 without breaking any boxes? Nope. Nuh-uh. No way. There is zero chance of you beating this game without some boxes being broken. But what is the minimum number of boxes required to get through the game? To keep things simple, I define a box breaking as any time the box counter increases in value. It doesn't matter what destroys the box. If the counter goes up, a box has been broken. Here are the rules for this run. I'm going to beat the game in a normal playthrough, so extra side levels are not required. Secondly, I'm going to avoid breaking as many boxes as possible, and finally, I can use any masks the game gives me from dying repeatedly. There's a few important things I want to mention before we start. First of all, I tried my best to beat this challenge, but I just could not beat the game without using checkpoints. This will be a theoretically perfect playthrough of the game. At the end of a level, I'll subtract any checkpoints I used, and that box total will be the theoretical perfect playthrough. And secondly, this is a blind challenge run. I haven't watched anyone else attempt this. So, feel free to let me know if you find a way to save more boxes, and also support other creators who try this run. With that out of the way, let's begin. Like old times, Crash woke up on the beach, and I started practicing his moves. The only power-up we have kept from Crash 3 is the double jump. So sadly, we will have to say goodbye to the bazooka, the death tornado, and our running shoes. The first obstacle was a wall of boxes, and it looked easy enough to jump over, but there was some weird collision with the walls that made jumping over the boxes tricky. I kept trying, but something always seemed to go wrong. But eventually, I got over and continued our quest. It was time to go for a slide. Now the rail sections proved to be quite a pain in this run. I found by spamming the B button, I was able to get Crash to clip through the boxes without breaking them. But I made the mistake of spinning the enemy ahead, which caused a box to die. After correcting my mistake, I made it to the bonus platform, which is essentially a free checkpoint. The rest of the level wasn't too bad, and we made it out alive with 0 boxes broken. We arrived at Sanity Peak, but I made the mistake of spinning enemies again, and a box paid the price. After resetting, I secured the bonus checkpoint and grabbed Lani Loli. But this is where things started to go wrong. The scary blue man destroyed all boxes in sight, and we suffered an unavoidable 34 box casualties. It looks like this challenge was going to be a real grind. I was able to use the power of phasing to skip some boxes, but the next rail section was ahead, and there were some unavoidable boxes that you have to jump through. I used the B button spam to avoid some boxes underneath, but another box was broken while jumping. After some more careful B spamming, I made it to the end and got my bonus checkpoint. There was some precise jumping ahead, but luckily the last box wasn't active. And before you know it, the level was done and there was only 2 box casualties. Next up was Crash Compactor. The first section just involved dodging enemies and obstacles, but another box died on the rail section. Apart from that one box, the rest of the level was straightforward, and it was time to hit the road. The difficulty was slowly starting to get more intense as the levels went on. I could clear most boxes when double jumping, but I had some trouble with the phasing sections. But after some patience, I made it through with 0 boxes. But then the chase section started. I avoided as many boxes as I could, but Engine plowed through them all. And by the end, a disgusting 64 boxes had been destroyed. It was time for revenge. After dodging some attacks and making a final spin, the engine had stalled, and we could move on to our next dimension. It was time to play Call of Booty. The level started innocent enough, but the number of enemies was starting to get silly. For the next rail section, I jumped over the first box and B-spammed the second. My timing was a little off. I clipped a box while going under, sacrificed a box to make a jump, and then failed to B-spam correctly. The rest of the level involved some platforming, and I got to the end with 3 boxes destroyed. But after retrying, I perfectly B-spammed twice, and so, with perfect play, only 1 box casualty needed to suffer. It was time to play as Torna.
Hang on guys, I'm coming!
I whipped away the enemies, but then I came to a stack of boxes. It was easy to destroy 4 of the crates and jump down, but I knew I could do better. I tried to jump around the boxes, but the invisible wall stopped me. With a precise stump, I destroyed only 2 boxes and I was just able to squeeze through. There was a similar section up ahead, and I wanted to practice my stumps. So, I broke the checkpoint and started practicing. Breaking only 2 boxes was doable, but no matter what I tried, Torna was too thick to fit through the gap. Eventually, I had to settle on breaking 3 boxes to fit through. So even without the checkpoint, you must break 4 boxes to get through this gap. I made my way through the level, but for some reason, a weird collision broke this checkpoint box. I made it to the end with 7 casualties. But ignoring that last checkpoint, a perfect player could get away with only 6 boxes being destroyed. I was happy with how the run was going, but Jetboard Jetty was the next level, and it broke my spirits. The platforming started fine, and it was very easy to get the bonus platform. But after that, the platforming just became silly. The number of jumps you need to make while avoiding boxes on a moving platform was ridiculous. I had a lot of trouble with this shark here. I have no idea why, but if you jump on his head, 4 boxes would randomly be added to the box counter, undoing all my hard work. I made it back, and I made a risky spin, but it stopped the 4 boxes from being broken. After some more platforming, I made it to the jet ski section. The box on the left can be avoided by hugging the wall, but I just couldn't find a way to clip past the box on the right. I did it all again, and I damage boosted through a mine to avoid the box. I cleared the jet ski section without breaking any boxes, but then immediately choked on the platforming. I pressed on, I made it back, and made it to another jet ski section. But on the ski, another box was randomly destroyed. Now, I was over an hour deep into this level at this point, so for my sanity and for science, I broke a checkpoint box. I made it back to the ledge, and without even touching the water, the box was destroyed again. After witnessing it 3 times, I can only assume that a cannon up ahead is blowing up a box. Back on the ski, I could hug the walls again, but I just couldn't get past this box on the right without breaking it. I tried again, but still had no success. I made it to the end, I killed Louise, and I finished the level with 6 boxes. Now 4 of these boxes were checkpoints, so a very skilled player could get through with only 2 boxes being broken. I met up with Akano, and it was time to give it a spin. With some precise spinning and a few careful jumps, the level started off well. But there was an awkward placement of boxes ahead, so I broke a checkpoint and started practicing. But 4 boxes was the best I could get away with. I carefully avoided the TNT and the Nitros, but up ahead there were 2 TNTs blocking the path. I made the sacrifice and carefully avoided the boxes below. There was a lot of spinning ahead, so I broke a checkpoint for safety. With some precise twirling and platforming, the rest of the level was doable. And ignoring the checkpoints, I finished with 6 unavoidable boxes. But I came back and I was able to save 1 more box, so 5 boxes is the casualty rate for this level. This challenge was starting to drag on. Now this level rewards you for getting 0 boxes, so I knew for a fact it was possible to do. I had some trouble with the first Akano section, but I slowly made my way through the level, carefully timed my spins, grabbed the blue gem, and no boxes were harmed. All this spinning had thrown me off balance. This level introduces the wall running mechanic, which definitely won't be annoying in later levels. I spun my way across and snagged my bonus checkpoint. I carefully jumped over the doggo, I twirled over the nitros, and there was some more wall running ahead. But thankfully, you can phase the boxes out of sight. After a final chaotic spin, I made it to the end with 0 boxes being harmed. It was time for a catch up with Embryo. I avoided his fist bumps, I knocked him off the edge, and it was over. Let's move on to the next dimension. We were now in the Mosquito Marshes, and things were starting to go offbeat. I wasted no time and grabbed my first checkpoint. The platforming sections were straightforward, but there were some deviously placed nitros that I had trouble with. But I managed to squeeze through and I reached the checkpoint. A few more precise jumps were needed, but then it was time for a rail section. I tried to avoid jumping to save a box, but these gaps must be jumped over to progress. The casualties started climbing, and just when I thought it was over, another rail section began. So many boxes died, and then right at the end, I accidentally hit the nitro switch, causing a genocide of boxes. After a cheeky restart, I did it all again, and I made it to the end. Ignoring 8 checkpoints, 16 boxes were unavoidable on my musical adventure. Let's mix things up and play as Dingodile. I don't know what the developers were smoking, but having 398 boxes in a Crash Bandicoot level is just stupid. There was a wall of nitros ahead, and it seemed easy to avoid. But the bat with the gun said no. I tried a different angle, but the wall got shot again. I used a pity mask to tank the shot, and then I took out the assassin. Up ahead there were some enemies who dropped TNT, which sadly causes the box to explode. I carefully avoided their path, and I made it to the first checkpoint. More nitros were ahead, but the bat had terrible aim, so we were okay. There was an ambush lying ahead, but I jumped into the background and took out the shooters. I made it to the final platform, but it was entrenched by enemies. I slowly took out the bats. I avoided the falling TNT, and I cleared the level with 5 boxes broken. Now these 5 boxes were all checkpoints, so with perfect play, 0 boxes would be broken. I was going to introduce this next level with a clever pun, but I need to run it by you first. The first section was a breeze with no issues at all. But the flying bats were back, and they had nitros this time. I made it past them all, but strangely 3 boxes were added to my counter. I carefully avoided the bats again, and this time 2 boxes were added. What the heck is going on? I took things slow and checked the box counter with great paranoia, and eventually the box counter didn't change. And I made it through with only 2 checkpoints being broken. But that all changed when the boat arrived. This boat would not move until the TNT wall was cleared. I made the jump, and 12 good box soldiers sacrificed their lives for progress. But sadly there was another wall and more casualties. I made a total mess of the boxes and I killed Crash and Shame. But I was able to minimize the casualties to only 1 more box. And then the jumping marathon started. Despite my best intentions, I just couldn't get past the TNT Nitro combo without destroying most of them. The boat section ended and I was back on my jet ski. The rest of the level was pretty straightforward. But ignoring 3 checkpoints, 35 brave boxers gave their life to progress our journey. It was time to say hello to Kapunawa, and there was no way out of completing the next level. Our new mask friend lets us slow down time, and it was useful for the platforming sections ahead. I jumped across the ice, and crossed the waterfall, and the level was done. And ignoring the 5 checkpoints, a true gamer could make it through with 0 boxes. Our next level was Stay Frosty. Despite the slippery floor, the platforming was pretty easy. Another rail section greeted us, and this time there was only one box I couldn't avoid. I went ice skating again, made some precise jumps, but after 3 checkpoints, the box on the rail was the only casualty for this level. But don't worry, the next level is going to make our box counter explode. The level starts deceptively straightforward. I was able to make it to the second checkpoint with minimal trouble. But then a wall of nitros appeared. I tried jumping across, but it was all in vain. 15 boxes evaporated in an instant. But just when I thought it couldn't get any worse,
I said, the wall just got 10 feet higher. It's true.
I tried my absolute best to avoid the carnage, but 36 more boxes went to heaven. I pressed on. I chased Cortex down the slopes, and I finished the level with so much box blood on my hands. But my conscience was seared. Could I do better? Could I save just one more box? After restarting, I figured out the only boxes on the screen seemed to explode. So with some clever jumping to trigger the cutscene and then dying, 5 boxes were now saved. Sadly, I couldn't get across the giant wall fast enough to save any other nitros. But after reaching the end with 4 checkpoints, we'd reduced the casualty rate to 46 boxes. It was time to take down Cortex again. I avoided his barrage of attacks, survived the rain of missiles, and I made the final blow. But we put our differences behind us and we headed to the next dimension. We had travelled back in time, but even cavemen used rail systems. Sadly, there were 4 unavoidable boxes on the rail. But history repeated itself. Another rail section, and another 4 casualties. So in the end, 8 boxes were added to our counter. It was time to play as Cortex for a change. Although his playstyle was different to the other characters, I still had problems with enemies destroying nitros. I sniped the plant from a distance, and safely made it to the next checkpoint. But there was an enemy camping a box, and I couldn't shoot him in time. But I pressed on, and after making a precise bounce, 1 more box needed to suffer to get through, for a total of 2 unavoidable boxes. Dino Dash was next. It was a pretty level, and the platforming was actually fun for a change. Using Lani Loli, I was able to skip all the boxes on the rail section. But then things took a turn for the worse. It was another chase sequence, and the boxes got T-wrecked. I have a great idea. Let's combine rail sections and a chase sequence together. There was one final chase sequence, and if we exclude any checkpoints, a devastating 47 boxes were added to our box counter. We found Ika Ika, and things got weird in the cutscenes. But on the positive side, I can reverse gravity now. There was some wall running ahead. It started off tame, but then it started to drive me mad. But I got the hang of it, and I made it safely to the checkpoint. After some flipping, there was a short rail section, and even more parkour. My wall running skills were improving a lot, but the double box inverted gravity wall run of doom was just too tricky for me to do. After many failed attempts, the game gave me a pity checkpoint. Eventually, I changed my perspective and I was able to make it past the boxes. Another rail section was ahead. I tried to jump over the boxes, but I had no success. I played it safe, and I sacrificed 4 boxes to keep going. But 3 boxes were randomly added to the box counter when I walked through this hallway. Did something shoot the nitros? I pressed on, I flipped off some enemies, and after playing it safe, 17 boxes were broken. But I wanted to do better. So, I tried again, and while practicing the rails, I was able to get a perfect B spam and clip through a nitro. This means it's possible to save a few more boxes. After another 43 attempts, I was able to do this. Thank you, I'll be signing autographs later on. I tanked the enemy hit and then killed him. But no matter what I did, 3 random boxes were still added to the counter. I made it to the end, did 3 more perfect B spams, and with 6 checkpoints in my pocket, only those 3 random boxes were added to the box counter. Next up was Stowing Away. The level starts off with 4 boxes blocking your path. I tried squeezing through, I tried skidding, I tried every angle under the sun, but vanity, all was vanity. These 4 boxes needed to die. I tried to shimmy past the boxes in the tunnel, but it was no use. More death. And 13 boxes died before I even reached the first checkpoint. It was time to wall run again. I figured out the secrets of parkour and desperately tried to save more boxes. But the box blood kept flowing. There were some boxes on the ceiling, and sadly, 3 more died so I could squeeze through. I was slowly making progress, but it was at the expense of dead boxes. Arcano showed up, and lucky for us, the heavy-duty crates could not be destroyed by enemies. And after 5 checkpoints, 18 boxes died on our adventure. I crash landed into the next level, and it was time for a classic Rick and Morty adventure. The first 2 checkpoints were easy to reach, and I went for a ride. A TNT crate exploded by itself, and then 2 more joined in. Another checkpoint was inside, but my desire for safety caused an innocent box to get snatched up by the starfish. I felt guilty, so I started again. With some precise jumps, I atoned for my mistake, and I went for another ride. I grabbed any safety checkpoints I could find, and after some risky jumps, only those 3 TNTs were guaranteed casualties. It was time to take down the Entropy Twins. After eating some questionable fruit, Arcano appeared, and we avoided the death lasers. After some platforming and some spinning, victory was ours. The dimensional rifts closed, and it was time to go and have a lunch break.
Nachos.
It was time to get some Uber Eats.
Whoa! You said it, Crash.
Like usual, the level starts off nice and box free. But then the TNT robots showed up. There were a lot of explosions. But I made it to the next Arcano section, and I stumbled across another platform of boxes. I was able to break only 1 box, but just like Torna, Crash was too thick to fit through. After breaking 2 crates, I did some precise twirling, but more TNT robots were triggered. The next platform was tricky to get past. I tried the Crash 2 strategy of hitting the checkpoint before the TNTs explode. But it didn't work, and 8 TNTs died. I kept moving forward, and more robots showed up. And by the end of the level, 39 boxes were broken. But I came back, and after some practice, I sacrificed 4 heavy-duty crates to save 8 TNTs. So, without using checkpoints, 27 boxes was the number of casualties. It was rush hour for Dingodile, and straight off the bat, a TNT robot explodes. I avoided the robot with a Nitro, but he followed me and he collided with a TNT stack. After a lot of patience, I guided the robot through the obstacle course, and I saved many boxes from dying. Another checkpoint, another explosion. There was a squad of Nitro robots chasing me. But I made it to the lift and tag team Torna into the battle. There was a rail section, another rail section, and even more rail sections. I dodged the oncoming traffic. And ignoring 7 checkpoints, only 3 TNT boxes were destroyed. It was time for the crate escape. We were playing as Cortex again. The TNTs were problematic at first, but with a jump and a dash, you can skip right past them. I grabbed the checkpoint, I avoided a TNT robot, and I was making good progress. After crossing the road without looking, I jumped over the crates, and Cortex decided to be evil again. The chase was on, and the TNT corpses kept piling up. But ignoring all the checkpoints, 9 TNT crates gave up their lives. Cortex went back in time, and Crash held on for dear life. But we landed safely, and it was time to hunt down Cortex. Nitro processing was quite a nice level. There was a high density of enemies, but I made it to the end only breaking checkpoint boxes. So with perfect play, this is a nice box-free level. But the toxic tunnels were next. The platforming was going to be a little trickier this time. There was more parkour to do, but I made it to the first checkpoint alive. But there was a walkway of TNTs that I just couldn't get past, and 8 TNTs died as a result. The platforming got spicier, and some very precise jumps were needed ahead. But after using 6 checkpoints, the 8 TNTs were the only casualties. The end was approaching, it was time for Cortex Castle. I survived the first phasing section, and made it to Akano. I was trying to find the best way to spin across with minimal casualties, and eventually settled on using a pity mask to survive the Nitro. I twirled my way to a checkpoint, and luckily enough, the crate to the right respawned after I died. I used 2 TNTs as a platform, and I used perfect timing to avoid the wall of boxes. The multi-mask section ahead was pure madness, and I clumsily damage boosted my way into the checkpoint. But in the pursuit of another checkpoint, 5 more boxes had to suffer. The next Akano section inflicted heavy losses on the TNT population, but after some practice, I found that by using double pity masks, you can damage boost on top of the lasers and save 13 TNTs from exploding. Sadly, I didn't have enough masks to try and save some Nitros, but I made it to the end with 25 boxes broken. I was curious if I could improve though. I started again, and with a decent run up, I was able to jump over the Nitro crate from earlier. By standing on top of the laser, I was able to save a few TNTs from exploding. I explored a new way of getting to the Nitros while still having only 1 mask left. But the lasers instantly killed me from above, from below, and from the roof. In the end, the original method of using 2 masks to jump on the lasers was the best. And at the cost of 71 more deaths and 7 checkpoints, I was able to reduce Cortex Castle to 14 boxes. It was time for the final fight with Cortex. After avoiding a whirlwind of attacks, he was defeated. The masks took him away, and the challenge was officially done. So, What's the final damage report? Well, a perfect player who never needed to use a checkpoint could beat this game with 355 boxes. But, as I died 1,205 times using checkpoints, there is no way I'm ever going to try to beat this game perfectly. As mentioned earlier, this was a blind run, so I'm sure someone out there can save a few more boxes. If you know of any more box saving tricks that I missed, please let me know. Well, thank you so much for watching my adventure. I hope you've enjoyed the chaos that is Crash 4. God bless.